and how are they teaching each other? Like I love hearing guys like coach each other up. Like I'll stop if two guys are having like a little powwow. Sometimes I'm like, hey guys, like let's wait on that so everybody can hear what needs to be heard. But I mean, just hearing how these guys talk to each other, how they coach each other up, whether it's a technique thing, whether it's a physical conditioning thing, right, or an effort thing. So to me, it's not really what it looks like. It's what it sounds like.
On today's episode of the Left Hash Call, we have an electric factory of a human being. He is one of my former colleagues and one of my best friends in the entire world. This individual is one of the most resilient, kind-hearted, and positive people that I've been fortunate enough to be around. He is the offensive line coach at Simpson College. Welcome to the show, Coach Alex Boyer.
What's up, man? I'm a little nervous, to be honest with you.
Don't be nervous. It's all conversational. We're all, we're just here to have a good time.
I don't know. I guess I wasn't anticipating all the equipment that goes into this.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I just thought it was going to be 2 cameras and like microphones, but it's way more than you would think it is as somebody who's never done this before.
Well, this is only the second time that I've done the in-person show, and since then I've gotten a lot more stuff and also doubling with the production company and all that stuff. So it's there's a lot of shit. And so it's fun, but yeah, so excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
This show is a big one because the inception of this show really came from you. It really did. When we were in season talking about, random stuff that we wanted to do in the off season, random thoughts thoughts and talks that we would have. We both talked about that we wanted to have a show one day.
Yeah.
And I ultimately decided that I wanted to get out of coaching, start a company, and ultimately I wanted to start this show. And we always said if the chance ever, gets there, we would do the show together.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm a big ideas guy, and I think podcasting is awesome. Like I love listening to podcasts, and I've always wanted to have one. But with what I want to do in the coaching career that I have, and as well as having a kid, like the idea was cool, but then I guess in a weird way, I wasn't really thinking like how much more time is taken away when a kid is like, when you have a child. And it's wild because I've been told 100 times, like your life's going to change. You're not going to have any more time. Well, yeah, that's all completely accurate. Like it's go home, take care of the kid, spend time with them, do anything that he needs, right? And I was the eldest of my family. I only had one younger brother, and then I had a bunch of younger cousins, but I was never so much older than them that I had a chance to really see what it was like to like handle a baby. Mm-hmm. So holding Miller for the first time, my son, was like quite honestly one of the first times that I really sat there and held a baby for longer than like 10 minutes. So that was a completely life-changing experience. So,
well, when, that was kind of a really unique experience for me as well, because I had never really had I've never really had a friend have a kid. Yeah. And so when we first met, we got pretty close in a hurry, and, just to kind of be friends. And then, you broke the news to me when we were, in the morning before we were having a staff meeting, and like, hey, Molly's pregnant. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is freaking kick ass. And then, eventually Miller's born. I get to go to the hospital and hold him. And it's like, it's obviously not as surreal as when you have your own kid. But for me, I was just like, this is so cool that I get to see one of my friends, one of the people I'm closest with, become a dad. And you're a great dad. You're a great dad.
Try to be. I'm still figuring it out, and Molly's having to be patient with me. She's been a saint, because it's, again, no experience with it. And the best piece of advice that I've gotten from her is, it was early on, I could not figure out why he was crying. Obviously, it's a baby, he's going to cry. And Molly's like, all right, there's 3 reasons why a baby's going to cry. And he's either hungry, he's tired or he needs his diaper changed. And just go down process of elimination. Oh, he got his diaper changed. He just ate. Well, he's tired. So try to put him down or rock him, get him going to sleep. So that's been something that's been in my mind the entire time now. It's like, all right, he's crying. He hasn't eaten, in 2.5 hours, 3 hours. He's probably ready to eat. Right. So, and just always trying to stay on schedule with everything that he needs. It's a lot more simple now that I've done it for a couple months than I was making it out to be in the beginning. So
is there something about it that maybe kind of surprised you about having a kid that's you're like, oh, I didn't realize that I would feel this way, or I didn't realize that this is something that I would be doing consistently, or is there anything about becoming a dad that kind of surprised you a little bit?
Yeah. So a thing that I heard a lot from, colleagues that have had children is you're not going to believe how quickly you're going to fall in love with something so quickly. And like holding him for the first time, I was like, whoa, like that's been hands down, like the most unbelievable experience is just like, just seeing him for the first time. He's taking his first breaths. He was pretty aware when he was first born. I don't know if that's normal, but like, he's just kind of looking around. I don't know how well he could see, but just kind of like seeing him and you're just like, whoa, this is wild. But then like also like seeing him hit these developmental milestones along the way. Cause like, I mean, you haven't seen him since he was hours old. It's not hours old, but maybe a day old at that point. But like now, I mean, he's grown, he's gained a bunch of weight, and like he's looking at me, like we can interact now, which is like the coolest thing ever. Is you pretty much start from scratch with a human, and you get to see him grow like physically, but also like developmentally. Like he could just sleep, cry, and eat. That's all he could do. And now, I mean, he's rolling, which again doesn't sound like a big deal if you don't have a kid. Right, but rolling's a big one. I mean, he's probably not that far away from crawling. We call it talking, but he's just cooing, making a bunch of noises, which when he first started doing that, I mean, Molly and I were just blown away. Like we were just in awe of like how he's developing. And I think I've developed a little bit more patience. Like I wouldn't consider myself to be a super patient person. But just having more patience, not only with like another person like him, but like with myself, and like understanding like, all right, I'm not like, I shouldn't expect myself to just understand how to do this right away. Like it's going to take some time to get into a routine and like understand what it takes to like take care of an infant and like a kid who's growing. And like at the end of the day, he doesn't know what's going on either. Like this is all new to him too. So that's definitely something that I've noticed in myself is I'm a lot more patient, not only with myself, with my wife or anything like that, but just with people in general. Like, and we can get into it later, but during spring ball, like I used to have a pretty short fuse, and what the kids would consider today as crashing out, like that was kind of an everyday occurrence. I didn't even know
that word. I got out of coaching and I was like, what is crashing
out?
out?
Oh, dude, I'm up with all the lingo.
Well, that's the thing. You get out of coaching, you like start forgetting about all this stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that means.
Oh, dude, no, the guys when they're coming through the office, I'm trying to pick up whatever lingo they got. Crash out was one of the first things that I picked up, and it's become like kind of part of what I like. That's just my vernacular now. It's like, oh, dude, I'm about to crash out. Not like actually, but like in my head, I'm like, that's a little frustrating. So, no, that, and again, not to get off on a tangent, but like that to me is something that's really cool. Is like, I'm not super old, right? But like, this is kind of a different generation that's coming up now that we're interacting with, we're coaching and, mentoring through this college experience. But you also get to pick up a little bit from them, whether it's, things that they did when they were growing up. They all grew up in different places. A lot of kids from Iowa, which is drastically different from where I grew up. But you get to pick up on a little bit of like that lingo, crash out. There's a million different things that they think it's hilarious when I say it, and it's probably because I don't fully know what it means just yet.
There's a lot of stuff that I am still like, I don't get it.
When I used it with anybody, but like if I go, "What's up, twin?" they lose it. These guys will lose it. They think it's hilarious because I'm probably the last guy they think would say something like that. But anyway, yeah, patience for sure is like the one thing that I've really noticed a change, within myself.
I want to talk about you. I want to talk about your journey to where you are. You grew up in Texas.
Yep.
And then you ended up playing college football in Nebraska. What was that kind of decision like?
Yeah. So, like most kids, I thought I was way better than I actually was. And it took me a while to figure out that, not a lot of Division I colleges are looking for, 5'11" and a half, maybe 6 foot offensive lineman.
Okay, if you're 6 foot, I'm 6 foot.
5'11" and a half.
If you're 6 foot, I'm 5'11", because that's definitely not the case. You're way taller. You're taller than me, right?
We'll have to check that.
We'll check that later.
Anyway, didn't really necessarily have the frame, wasn't talented enough. So it was kind of late in the recruiting process. It's funny. So the way that I found out about Midland, I didn't know that they had existed, well into my senior year. And there was another college that had come down to visit that was in that conference. And they were just telling us about, we're in Iowa. We play in the GPAC. We play schools in South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska. And as soon as he said Nebraska, like I kind of perked up and I was like, what schools are in Nebraska? Mm-hmm. And he listed out, Midland being one of them. So I kind of listened to whatever else he had to say. And, that was at the end of the school day. So I went home and, pulled out my computer and I just started searching, NAIA schools in Nebraska. And Midland was the one that was closest to Omaha. And that was a big part of my decision because my mom grew up in Omaha. Her parents, so my grandparents, lived in Omaha. And it wasn't the only decision, but it was a very big part of this decision that I wanted to go to a school where my grandfather could watch me play.
Did he get to watch you at all when you were in high school? Or
it got a little tricky as I got older, mm-hmm. and a lot of that had to do with the state of health that my grandmother was in. But through youth football, when I was in elementary school and maybe even middle school, he got to come down every once in a while. But that 10-hour drive, mm-hmm. that's a bear. And as you get older, it probably gets a lot tougher. But I've made that drive a number of times. So that was ultimately a big part of my decision is I wanted to be closer to them so I could spend more time with them. But really give my grandpa a chance to watch me play football because that was something that was really special to him when I was growing up. So I wanted to be able to continue to do that. And it just, going and visiting campus, I was like, this is a place where I could see myself. And that was probably the overriding decision. I'm not a guy that was really looking at facilities or anything like that as part of my decision. They had my major that I wanted to get into, which was strength and conditioning at the time. And I ended up switching to secondary education, but it was just a nice fit. And again, it was a spot where I had family, so I wasn't going to be completely on an island out there. So, I had a home away from home if I needed it, which it worked out really nicely. I had zero regrets about Midland looking back at it. Like that was a phenomenal experience. And I really wouldn't trade, that experience for anything else, just with, the friends that I made, and that time that I got to spend with my grandparents was pretty special.
What was it that ultimately drew you to then start coaching? Did you always know you wanted to be a football coach, or how did that start? Yeah.
So, if you were to ask my mom, she would tell you that from the age of like 5, she knew I was going to be a football coach.
Yeah.
Cause their kids draw, right? And, kids draw trees or race cars or whatever. And I was drawing up like speed option over like on a little notebook, and I could never find it, but she had like a stack of papers, of all these, she must have gone in and just found them, one day when she was cleaning stuff up. But there was like a little stack of plays that I had, like my own little mini playbook.
Were you drawing it up correctly? I'd have
to find them first. but I can tell you it was speed option because growing up playing on the GameCube,
Oh yeah.
that's literally the only play I would run is just speed option left, speed option right. Like that's all I wanted to run. So I was just drawing up that as many times as possible. So it was something that I always, I guess, maybe thought about. In Texas, football's pretty special. It's special everywhere you go. But like in Texas, it can be, some people call it religion. In my hometown, it was a little bit different just because there's so many schools. But I mean, the stage is set. I mean, the environments that you get a chance to play in when you're going through Texas high school football, I mean, there's some special environments out there. And I mean, I was playing football since I was 5. So it was really the only sport that really drew me in. And that was really the only thing I've ever been interested in was football. And all of that only got confirmed by some phenomenal coaches that I had growing up, whether it was in youth. I mean, man, talk about special people. Like, those who choose to volunteer, because they're not getting paid, I don't think, but those who choose to volunteer to coach youth football, I mean, those are some of the most important years of a child's development. And man, I don't really remember the football coaching points, but one of the biggest things that was impressed upon us was like respect. And I can think back to like our head coach. He's like, if your parents ever tell me that you didn't say yes, sir, or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, like you're going to be running. And so that was something that they impressed upon us, was like the respect of your parents and the people around you. So that was a big, that obviously left a big impact on me. Had some great coaches in middle school.
I don't think people realize how good some of these like youth coaches are, not necessarily with the scheme or whatever. Like, yeah, fucking whatever. But I have similar experiences too, where it's just like those coaches like left such a positive impact, and bad as well. But some coaches I had, man, they are just critical for me developing as a human being.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it wasn't a high school coach or a college coach, like I would venture to say that some of my youth coaches and my middle school coaches were more important in my development as a human being than even being in college or in high school as well.
Yeah. No, and then my high school coaches were phenomenal. Coach Bandy was my offensive line coach, and looking back, it all makes sense, but there were some times I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this is brutal. But I mean, that guy, you were in that offensive line room, you were expected to work. And it was good to have that experience, because I know a lot of kids in high school probably don't get that experience. And then when they get to college, they're kind of blindsided by it. Where I don't think I was necessarily blindsided by the work that had to be put in, more so than just being far away from home. And that was just kind of a challenge in and of itself.
So when you end up, you're about to graduate from Midland, right?
Yeah.
Did you kind of already have an opportunity set up, or kind of what was that process like getting your first coaching job?
Yeah, so I didn't necessarily have something set up. The plan was to help out at Midland for a season, and potentially get a GA spot there. Or, I get a football season under my belt, maybe I find something else. So that was kind of the plan. Now, that's not because I wasn't trying. Like, I was student teaching, through that last semester of school, and I spent, most evenings, after I got done grading homework, of course, emailing coaches, schools in the region, Division II, Division I. I was just emailing resume, everything like that, just trying to see what was out there. And nothing ended up working out. So that was the plan. And so through the summer, I was working landscaping and trying to help out at Midland as much as I could through the summer while I was making money. And in mid-July, maybe it was early July now, I can't really remember, a coach from Wayne State emailed me kind of out of the blue saying, hey, we have a GA spot open. We took a look at your resume. Would you want to come out and interview? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because I wanted to get into it. Like, I didn't, nothing against Midland. I love Coach Jamrog and everything like that. I just don't know if I was really willing to just kind of sit around and wait for a maybe. on a GA spot. So I went out there. It wasn't really an interview at all. It was mostly like, hey, work this camp, and we'll let you know what's going on afterwards. So I helped work a prospect camp, and then they offered me the job after that. So, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I moved up there, about 2 weeks before fall camp. So it wasn't all set in stone how I probably would have liked it, but it worked out.
Then when, you're going to, you're a GA and then you're trying to go find your first full-time job, was that a stressful time for you, or what do you kind of remember about that first, trying to find that first full-time gig?
Yeah. So I never want to be the guy that is looking for the next job while I'm in a job currently. It was during COVID, so it was kind of a weird time, in the coaching job market. But I was really just focused on trying to do the best I could for the school that I was at, with the understanding that if something were to pop up, I would definitely look into it. And so, Judson University reached out about an offensive line job, and I was pumped. Offensive line was my home. I was coaching running backs. Before that, I was coaching tight ends. And I enjoyed it. I loved coaching the guys that I was with, but offensive line was my home. That's where I felt the most comfortable. So I ended up taking that job, and for multiple reasons. I was getting married, so I definitely needed to make more than $8,000 a year. So
it's kind of wild how it's like sometimes you think like, how can they get away with this? But it's it's totally at the will of, it's like you get to do this, like you get to do that job, and so, but it is like, oh boy, like my rent that I'm paying right now is all going, like my one check that I get goes completely to that, and that's it.
Dude.
So
on payday, man, it was a good day for the GAs.
Did you ever do anything to make any other money during that time?
I didn't. I probably, looking back, probably would have helped me if I did. Right. But I thought I did well enough saving money through the school year to kind of just make it by in the summer. Again, I just wanted to pour myself into the school and my job. I didn't want to be distracted with anything else. And, my parents helped out, here and there. So I'm not going to say I did it all on my own.
Right.
But I didn't want to have a second job that took away from what I was trying to do and the experience that I was trying to gain during that time. So no, I didn't. So
I want to hear about your first impressions of Simpson, because when, the offensive line job opened up after, our friend Quincy Griffith took an offensive line job, offensive line assistant at Iowa, the job opened up. How'd you first hear about Simpson? Did you know of Simpson? And then what was your first impression of it all?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, when Coach Hoskins first took the job, Quincy reached out to me about it and said, hey, would this be something that you're interested in? So I looked up Simpson College, just scrolling through the website, not only the academic side of the website, but the athletics, just to kind of see what the school had to offer. And, the facilities, because again, I'm not a big facility guy, right? But it's keeping up with the Joneses now, and everybody's trying to upgrade. Everybody's got this, everybody's got that. So I wanted to make sure that I was in a place that I could really sell, in a place that has shown to invest in the student athletes. So at that point, this was in December. So this is right as Coach Hoskins took the job. So I was definitely interested. And Coach Hoskins and I had a conversation or two, about the offensive line job. And then Quincy ended up taking the job. So no big deal there. But I always kind of had that in the back of my head, right? I don't know how long Quincy's going to be there, but that could be a potential option down the road. And then Quincy ends up calling me and says, hey, I'm going to be leaving Simpson. I'm going to be taking the assistant offensive line job at Iowa. I'm going to recommend you again for the Simpson job. I was like, great, I'm all about it. So Coach Hoskins and I had another conversation, got me on campus. And to be completely honest with you, I was blown away. Not just at what the school had to offer, what it looked like, all the facilities, campus, everything's beautiful here. But I was really just blown away with the people that I encountered. Marty Bell, our athletic director, you called me an electric factory. That guy's an electric factory. He's awesome.
I've told this story before, but it's like when Marty first got hired. I remember I was on like the student committee to like just to hear what some of the I knew before some of the other students knew because we were kind of in that process. But when we hired this guy, I was like, okay, like I didn't even know we had an assist. Like I didn't even know we had an AD at all. Just being stupid. But then I was out on this field working out one day, and I just see like this big scoreboard get wheeled in here, and I remember seeing Coach Bell just walk out there. He's like, "What do you think?" I was like, "Oh, this is you?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's our first win." I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is what this guy is all about." And it was like 1 week after he was in the building, and yeah, he's phenomenal.
Yeah. So, and then again, meeting with Coach Hoskins, kind of getting a chance to meet him face to face and the rest of the staff, I really felt like, this was a place that I could really grow, and help build the college, build the program back to where it used to be, a couple decades ago. And there's a lot of phenomenal history around here as I'm learning. And to be honest with you, this conference is a ton of fun. It's a tough conference. But like seeing all the history, like that's just something I'm not really used to, is like at least Simpson. I don't know about the rest of the schools in our conference, but like phenomenal at tracking history. Like you walk through the Hall of Fame. There's a bunch of portraits down the hallway. I've never really seen that anywhere else. At least not from where I walked around. I'm sure there's other spots, around campuses of other schools that I've been to that have that. It's right there. Like the amount of times that I've seen that Hall of Fame, it's like, man, there's a lot of really proud history here. And that's something that really drew me in, and I want to be a part of it and really help, build this program back up.
I want to hear about your first, essentially not really spring, but right when you got here, because the timing was a little interesting because, you didn't have, a lot of time to kind of get ready for the season. And so was that a stressful time for you to kind of get ready, because you came in right after spring ball, right?
Quite literally right after spring ball.
Right. Yeah. So, was that kind of an awkward time, or what do you kind of remember about that first, couple months here?
Yeah, it was tricky for sure. And it's mostly because I didn't know the group that I was going to be coaching like hardly at all. I would have some interactions during, youth camp or team camp, but I really didn't know them like I would like to as I'm getting ready to coach them. So, in August, when everybody reported and we get our first install meeting in, I pretty much had to introduce myself to everybody and be like, hey, this is me. And like, we're going to figure this out together.
Yeah.
Like, you guys don't know me. I don't really know you guys, but we're going to figure it out. Because usually with coaching changes, it typically happens before spring ball, right? So you get a chance to kind of figure things out together during spring ball where there's no timeline of a game coming up right away, where I got like 3 weeks to figure it out. So it was a tricky situation to walk into, but it had nothing to do with the guys that I was going to be coaching and everything to do with just trying to figure everybody out and understand like what it takes to get these guys to understand what they need to understand. So my only experience against Division III was against North Park, and that was 2 weeks out of 2 years. We had a home and home against them, so I didn't really know what to expect. This league is like stacked with talent. I really do believe.
Well, the thing about the team that, some of the teams that you played your first year here, I mean, Wartburg specifically like had, a semifinalist team. And so it's like, my goodness, like that team specifically was very good.
Yeah, no, top to bottom, there's some really special football players in this conference. And I think that was the thing that I was the most impressed with. And also it just seemed, I don't know, a little bit more squared up compared to the league that I was in before.
Right.
Just with, how coaches went about their business and just the general scheme and what was trying to get done that I was really impressed with. I mean, Division III, and again, I don't want to go on a recruiting pitch here because I gotta fight the NAIs in recruiting with my area. But it's a special level of football, and a lot of people look at it as non-scholarship football. But that shouldn't take away from your experience. There's incredible talent, across the country at Division III. There's guys that have gotten drafted in the past. So, if you're looking for opportunities, you shouldn't be looking at, is it an athletic scholarship or is it an academic scholarship? You should be looking at, all right, what kind of experience am I going to get? You know, am I going to get coached the way that I want to get coached? And am I going to get the kind of education that I want to get? So, again, not to go on a recruiting tangent there.
We can do it. Sure can.
But no, I mean, Division III is a very special place. And just seeing all the history in the league has been, you know, it's been an awesome experience so far.
You know, one thing I want to ask about is, you know, you've definitely been through some difficult times. And one thing that's just amazed me about you is how positive that you remain through it. Where do you think that kind of comes from, regardless of the situation, whether it's a football related thing, a life thing? How are you able to really stay, you know, positive and have a good mindset about things?
Yeah. There's a number of things that I think about quite often. The first one being, you know, for context, all right, in the past couple of years, I've had probably an unfair chunk of people pass away. So my first thought was like, what would they think right now if I was acting any kind of different than what I usually am? So that was like the first thought that populated in my brain as I was starting to kind of come to grips with what was going on. The next part is I'm a big believer in practice what you preach. You know, I've had a number of guys in the past that have faced difficulties of their own, and I've always told them, leave whatever's going on at the gate when you walk to the practice field. And I don't think I could look the guys with a straight face and tell them that if I wasn't going to do it myself. So, like, for example, when you were out at practice for the first spring ball practice, the second one, but my first one, I had 2 hours to just sit in the car. It was really a bizarre time. For me, just like, all right, buried my grandma. All right, now we got to get in the car and go because I want to be at practice. So I really had a time to sit there and think. And I was like, man, I got to get myself right. You know, and it was like, just leave it at the gate when you get there. Leave it at the gate. So when I got on that practice field, I was like, it's over. Like that's behind me right now. I'll come back to it when, you know, practice is over. But, you know, I've got to be the best possible version of myself right now because the guys deserve it. And so as soon as I hit that track, I was like, I got to jog. I got to get into this practice flow. And it certainly helped that, you know, the guys that were out there, you know, during pre-practice, they started cheering when they saw me. So I was like, all right, here we go. Like, I got to get into this. So,
well, I mean, when something like that happens and you're remaining positive, and like the guys, of course, know about it. And it's like whatever is probably going on in their lives right now. And not to say it's not insignificant or anything, but it's like, man, if I'm, you know, pissed off about a math test I just took, I can probably get through this practice if Coach Boyer can get through this thing. And so, I mean, just that's always been one thing that, you know, affected me a little bit, definitely, is watching you kind of go through this, you know, the season and our times together. And like, I'm all pissed off because I got to make a scouting report and you're just like going through like some of the hardest times in your life. And you're just like, oh, I'm just having a good time. Like, you know, it's freaking awesome. And within that, how do you think you define resiliency now versus like earlier in your coaching career?
Earlier in my career, it was based on wins and losses, like
Right.
what the scoreboard told me and how I needed to handle that. Looking back, or like now, it's resiliency to me is not allowing your environment to dictate who you are. So, and I'm going to quote Nick Saban here, but it's the internal scoreboard versus the external scoreboard, right? So, and what he talks about, and I'm probably going to butcher a lot of this, the external scoreboard is your surroundings, right? So what's happening around you. And if you let that get into you and impact you, you're not going to be able to perform at the level that you need to, where your internal scoreboard's like, all right, I got to focus on, you know, my job, right? And right now my job is teaching and getting my guys in the right mental headspace to perform at a consistent level and help the team win, right? But if I'm focused on the wrong things, right, which is fair to do given my situation, but if I'm focused on all of that, that's not helping the guys. That's not helping the team. So resiliency is really just trying to put on that bulletproof vest and not allow those external bullets that are firing at you on a daily basis. Just really trying to repel those and try to keep that from not cracking in and impacting what you're doing.
I love that. That's that's another thing is as life goes on, as your career goes on and you start to learn more about yourself as well, you start to realize that this job particularly as coaches, you realize that what you're doing is much more important than just what the scoreboard says and what the win-loss ratio says. And is there times where you've realized that within yourself, like, okay, I'm making a difference right now in somebody's life versus just worrying about the scoreboard and all that all the time?
That's a tough question. So it's really hard to see the difference that you're making. At least for me, it's tough to see the change or the difference that you're making in somebody's life, like right then and there when you're doing things. But when you look back, 2 or 3 years prior, and you see, you think about who this person was when you first met them, right? And then you see now who they are, and you get a chance to reflect on that. I mean, it's awesome, right? Like there's a guy in our room that before was just angry and didn't handle, losing well, and not necessarily losing on the scoreboard, but losing on a given rep. But to see who he is now, and how he's changed, I mean, it's a 9-day difference. And he and I have talked about it. He's not the same person that he was when I first got here. And again, I'm not taking credit for that at all. But those are the things. That's like the best analogy that I could use is you don't see the difference like right now. But when you kind of take a step back and you look at everything and you think about how it was before, that's that's awesome. Like, I love that. And again, I don't want to take credit for that, right? Like, a lot of that is those guys committing to, my coaching, right? And my coaching just working at times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You talk about making a difference. So you started a foundation in your mom's name. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So back in January, my mom passed away. She had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes since she was probably about 24, 25. And at that time, that was, I don't want to age her by any means, but the medical technology was a little bit different back then. And, the medicine that she'd been taking had taken a toll on her body. And she ended up passing away just with some complications with type 1 diabetes in January of 24. And I was kind of sitting there reflecting on it, just thinking about her earlier this year. And I was like, how can I continue to have her name be said? And I was like, I'm going to start a nonprofit. Like, I want to start a nonprofit that's completely dedicated towards, type 1 diabetes, and not necessarily just to spread awareness, but to help educate, people with type 1 diabetes, because there's people out there. It's an expensive disease. It's incredibly expensive. And there's stories that I've heard in the past where people are foregoing, taking the medication that they need to survive so they can pay for their child's, daycare. Right. So to me, it's incredibly important to spread that education, and help get that money to people who can provide resources for them. So, the same thing doesn't happen to them that happened to my mom at such an early age, for her. And not to say that my mom didn't take care of her body, but those things can take a toll on you if it's not properly monitored. And it's really important to me that I can continue to have her make an impact on people that will never know her.
Yeah.
So that was just the inspiration. I was thinking about her in January, and I was like, I want to continue to allow my mom to make an impact, because she was such an incredible person and had so many great friends and stuff like that. So I wanted to continue to share her impact.
So, where can people go if they want to just check it out or help out, support? What's kind of the, if someone's got, everybody's been touched in some way by this, and so, if there's somebody that wants to go check it out, where would they go?
Yeah, so I'm still working on the website, and getting that stuff organized. Right now, I'm working with Give Butter, and I'll text you the link after this.
Yeah, we'll put it all.
But there's some different things that I'm working on right now. Like I'm working on a T-shirt design, where, again, you pay X amount of money, the proceeds are going to go to the foundation. But there's other events that I'd like to do down the road. But I'm still working on the social media side of things, the website side of things. I just want to make sure it's a good product, right? It looks good before I start just pumping all this stuff out. So right now it's all Give Butter, and I'll share the link with you. I don't know if can you put that in the bio?
Put it wherever. We'll put it in the link, put it in the description, put it on social media.
Perfect.
You should already know about it by now.
Okay.
So, shifting gears just a little bit. Sometimes football takes a toll on you, right? And no matter who you are, and for you, is there a moment where football stopped being fun for you? And then how did you ultimately bring that joy back?
Yeah. So, the time that I often think back on was my freshman year of college. And it's not uncommon. A lot of guys go through it. Your first year of college is easily your most difficult. With football, with school and everything like that. I wasn't handling it well. Being away from home was tough. I would consider myself a homebody. So again, being 10 hours away from home was not fun for me. And I could think multiple times, man, I was like, I want to go home. I want to drop out. Like, I want to go home. I'll just go to community college. Maybe go to UNT after that, get a teaching degree, and then just teach high school, social studies and coach football after that. And I can remember, there were multiple times that I would call my mom about it, and she's like, just stick it out. Like, you don't know if it's going to get better unless you just try. And there ended up being a coaching change, towards the end of my first year there. And then they ended up hiring Coach Jamrog. And just with his first, introduction to the team, I was like, I'm going to stick this out another semester. And after that, I kind of found my groove and where I was supposed to be. But it was definitely that freshman year, and a lot of it just was a combination of being away from home. The culture wasn't great on the team. I didn't feel like I fit in. But again, it was my mom just like, keep pushing. And I'm like incredibly thankful for that. Like, she just wouldn't let me quit. And my parents never let me quit anything. So I don't know why my freshman year calling, thinking that was going to work out. But that's probably the most profound moment in time where I was like, I'm just going to hang it up and be done. And thankfully I didn't.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to go, check out the foundation, check out, anything Coach Boyer's got going on, leave the link down below, put it on social media everywhere. So you can go check that out. But shifting gears a little bit, kind of more towards the football things a little bit. When you're developing offensive linemen, right? What are some of your non-negotiables, for developing, offensive linemen?
Yeah. The number one non-negotiable for me is like that nasty mentality. And that's not like
is that something that you're born with, or is that something that you can coach into guys?
That's a tricky answer. I think most of it's pretty natural. But that's not to say that you can build that mentality. It just takes a while to really get grips with it. But it's just like that. The nasty part isn't like playing dirty or anything like that. It's just that desire that I'm going to move the person across from me from point A to point B. I'm going to do it as physically as possible. The other non-negotiable for me is just overall flexibility and bend. Like if you can't get down to a stance comfortably and move out of it, it's going to be tough for you to get the job done in general. And again, that's something that gets developed. Not a lot of guys coming out of high school are just gifted or have been trained to be flexible and be able to bend. So those are my top two. And then just overall knowledge of scheme and how well you're able to pick things up. That's really important because you got to be able to know what's going on. You got to know what the other four guys around you are doing and how they're going to get the job done. So understanding the big picture would probably be my number three. And again, that stuff gets coached into you. And if I'm doing my job as a coach and teaching you how you need to be taught, I mean, that should be something that gets picked up, pretty early on in your career.
Is there a certain level of recruiting that type of player versus seeing what that type of player can become? Like, where do you kind of draw that balance?
I see a lot of potential in the guys that, we recruit, whether it's at offensive line, tight end, linebacker, whatever it is. I always try to see the potential because, again, no matter what level, a kid's playing at, right? Whether if they're getting recruited to play Power 5 or if they're getting recruited to play, Division 3, there's not very rarely are you going to find a finished product. So when I'm evaluating tape, I'm trying to see what they are going to become. So it's not necessarily like, all right, this guy's ready to roll. Like, you're rarely going to find a guy like that, especially at the offensive line level or at the offensive line position, because, again, the talent, the strength, everything like that is just a little bit different when you get to the college level. So a lot of it is just trying to find the sweet spot of where their potential's at, and how can I get them to that potential as quickly as possible if they decide that Simpson's the place that they want to be.
Right. What is, culture? Culture is one of those words that gets thrown around all the time. What does culture look like for you in your offense line room?
Yeah. When I think of culture, I don't necessarily think about how it looks, but what does it sound like, right? How do the guys in the room talk to each other? How do they support each other if somebody's having a hard day? And how are they teaching each other? I love hearing guys coach each other up. I'll stop if two guys are having a little powwow. Sometimes I'm like, hey guys, let's wait on that so everybody can hear what needs to be heard. But I mean, just hearing how these guys talk to each other, how they coach each other up, whether it's a technique thing, whether it's a physical conditioning thing, right, or an effort thing. So to me, it's not really what it looks like, it's what it sounds like. And that's something that I've been really, blessed with this room is that they've really done a good job of, kind of adapting to how I teach and how I coach, and running with it. And, obviously, when I first got into that room, it wasn't necessarily that case and again, it was the guys trying to figure it out. But, the guys in that room who have stuck it out for the 3 years that they have with me have definitely bought into the culture that I've tried to build, and have done a really good job, developing as leaders as well. But to me, it's all sound, what it sounds like, how the guys are talking to each other, how they're leading each other. But the other thing too is, and again, this is not my own thought, but, at the beginning of the year, I try to provide a vision for the guys, on what I want the offensive line room to be. And this is something that I came up with, but it's something along the lines of, my goal, for those who come through, the Simpson football program and play offensive line to become better people, leaders, and football players. And that's just something I want to give to the guys. It's like, guys, listen, the wins, those are going to come, right? The losses, those will come too, right? That's part of the game, right? But I want you guys to look back on these 4 years, 10 or 15 years down the road and be like, I'm really glad that I did that, right? Coach Boyer really, helped develop me in all facets of my life, not just as a football player. And it's intentional that the vision of the program is not to rush for 250 yards a game or to win X amount of games. It's like, guys, this is what we're trying to do. I want to help you guys develop everywhere, include not only in football, but in the classroom, if I can help you there, in leadership, everything like that.
One of the most important things, with you is on top of being the offensive line coach, you're also the food guy. I've talked about this on the show before, but how important is that title for you? And then also, what are some of the things that you are thinking about when it comes to feeding the guys pre-game and post-game?
It's as a former offensive lineman.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean you just went into like the serious, like, offensive line talk, and it's like, so feeding the team, right?
Yeah, it's one of the most important jobs, right? You've said that before.
Guys don't remember who they played sometimes, but they do remember where they ate before and after the game. That's
true.
Remember the guy from, like, I think it was like Boston College? He was talking about, he's like, what a reporter asked him, like, what's one of the things you're going to miss about the game? And he, like, takes a second. He's like, going out to eat. And so you're a big reason, you're a big part of that.
Right. And, yeah, no, the title's incredibly important to me. I want to make sure that the guys are, fed. That would not be a good thing if, after a game there was no food. I don't think they'd be very happy. What was the second part of that question?
Well, what kind of things, do you think about? What are you looking for in a fast food joint and a pizza place? What are some of your non-negotiables?
Oh man,
for a pizzeria or a burger joint? What are you looking for in a guy? When it comes to this,
how much time do you think I put into, like, dialing up the food on a given road
being
trip?
Someone that was around you when you were doing this? There was a lot of time, I thought, spent, and it felt a little meticulous. We did have like 8 straight weeks of Pizza Hut or Domino's, and so
Pizza Ranch.
Was it Pizza Ranch? I'm pretty sure it's Domino's for sure week 1.
No, that was Papa John's. It was Papa John's.
Yeah. Do you have a story that's like food nightmare with this stuff? Actually, answer get to the bottom of the first question.
What am I looking for?
Yeah, what are you looking for? Are you proximity?
Proximity plays a role. I think a big thing is like, what's the highest quality of food that I can get in bulk?
Right.
So, and no disrespect to McDonald's, but I don't think that's going to be the top quality food.
And you also don't want to, you're not going to go to fucking.
Well, right. And to me, and again, I don't get raving reviews from the guys on pizza after every game. I can tell you that.
The parents do a good job though with the other stuff, right?
The parents do it. I've never seen anything like that. The parents do a phenomenal job.
Me neither. It's pretty unreal.
Oh, I know.
I mean, they're giving us there's 5 cookies in there. There's as a coach post game, because I'm like, I don't give a shit. I just, I just sat up in a coaching press box for 2 hours, 4 hours. I'm good.
Dude,
but I want
after games, there might be a couple extra pizzas laying around, and I'm looking around like, all right, this is my pizza right here, and whatever's in that Ziploc bag from the parents group, it's gone. Whatever's in that pizza box, probably gone too.
The best thing as a coach is after all the pizzas have been dispersed, and there's one kid that went home with his parents, and so there's one pizza by yourself that you get to eat by yourself.
I always try to order a little bit more.
You do a good job of that. Sneak
in a couple extra pizzas, but I think logistically, what makes the most sense, and how can we get? And I hate that I'm really getting into detail about this. This is wild, but how can we get?
This is the stuff that you have to do as a football coach.
Right. This is things that people don't think about.
Nobody thinks about being the food guy.
Right.
They're trying to get an itemized bill from the.
Well, I mean that plays a role, and but it's how can we get this line of guys coming out of the locker room onto the bus as quickly as possible so we can get on the road. And pizza has definitely been the go-to. And to be quite honest with you, I'm a man of habit. Anywhere I've gone out to eat multiple times, I'm telling you right now, I get the same exact thing. It doesn't matter where it's at. Like Texas Roadhouse, I get chicken fried sirloin with a loaded baked potato and a salad. Like that every time. I'm not venturing outside of that. So it's kind of the same way as the food guy is I'm going to go with what's comfortable.
Now, here's the question though. When I was on the staff at River Falls, we always went out to Fridays was always a buffet. And if you win, go to the same buffet.
Yeah.
If you lose, switch it up.
Yeah.
One thing about you that I would be critical of is week 1 lose, right? You know, we're at home the next week, so different. But then we eat the same food.
I don't think you're right about that. What was week 3? Who was week 3 last season? I think it was Dubuque.
That's right.
And what did we get at Dubuque?
I can't remember, actually. I was just putting you on the spot.
Chick-fil-A.
Oh, did we do Chick-fil-A post-game?
Yes. That was a nightmare because
right.
The delivery.
That's always a wild card with this whole thing. It's like you never know if the delivery guy's going to be worth the darn or not.
Well, it had nothing to do with the delivery person. It was just like kind of tricky to navigate because, and again, I don't remember how Dubuque's campus was set up, but like there's things blocked off that kept them from getting to us.
Right.
So I was like walking through their athletics facility trying to figure out like how can I describe where they need to go. So, I mean, that was difficult, but I thought it worked out.
I feel like you're one of the better food guys I've been around.
I appreciate that. Mount Rushmore of food guys.
Of guys that I've been around, yes.
Oh, that's...
Coach Walker was food guy at River Falls.
Oof.
Dude. Oh. We did Chick-fil-A after.
So I need to do a professional development, like food guy thing.
There needs to be, instead of AFCA, I'm just saying, there needs to be at least a breakout session of food guys. Like, hey, here's what kind of discounts we can get for, they should do that. They should do like football. They should do something for that for all these like chain restaurants. Okay, here's my question. If you could just order whatever you wanted post game, like I'm talking chain wise, like fast, like restaurants, you had unlimited budget, what would you get? And it has to be something that's relatively close.
That's tricky because every town that we play in is a little bit different. So the access to food's a little bit different.
Right. Okay, better question. If you could only do one place for the rest of your coaching career,
I think you might know the answer already.
is it Chick-fil-A?
It's Casey's.
Oh, okay.
Come on. Casey's Pizza, you can't beat it. Now, I actually have not ordered. There's not been a post-game meal through Casey's yet.
Right.
So I got to strike a deal with them.
Okay, so yeah, it's not going to be week 1, but week 2 is going to be up in, that's the thing,
that's up
week
in
2 is going to
Minnesota.
be in St. Bonifacius up in Crown.
I don't know if
There's actually, there might be some Casey's up there, now that I think about it. Because Casey's is popular up in Minnesota as well.
it's more of a quick star? Or is it quick trip
it
up
is
there?
quick trip up there, but they're not, I don't even know what the popular gas station is up there. Because
I don't think the
Wisconsin,
gas station,
it's quick trip, no doubt. Like, but
nobody quite has the same gas station culture as Iowa does. I can tell you that right now. From living in Texas to
with Buc-ee's though, right? I mean, but come on now.
No, it's not to take away from the Buc-ee's is unmatched. Not even, there's nothing, you have to go to a Buc-ee's to experience it. I'm telling you, like there's, the first time I was in one, I was like, there's like, what is, I'm saying culture, not gas stations. The thing that I've learned, especially on like in recruiting on the road, but like whether it's small town Iowa or, not as small town Iowa, all the Casey's, like they might look a little bit different on the outside, might look a little bit different on the inside. The pizza's the exact same. The pizza's like the most consistent thing. And like Tom Brady said, the difference between good and great is consistency, and Casey's definitely has found their consistency in pizza.
Now, here's my question though. This conversation is where we've probably lost most people. Is there a method behind the pregame meals now?
That has to do a lot with the travel and how we're doing that. So like if we're staying overnight, we're usually going to do our pregame meal through the hotel. If we're making a day of trip, we kind of have to coordinate the route that we're taking with like potential options along the way. So those day of trips are a little bit trickier for me. But now that I have that feel, right? Because we have all the same road trips as we did in the first season.
Yeah, it's like kind of rinse and repeat a little bit.
Right. So now I can kind of anticipate what I need to do, and I'm probably going to get way ahead and take care of some of that during the summer.
Right. Now, you also double as equipment guy.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about that?
my favorite part about that is it's probably the most stressful time, but like that equipment check-in, it's because you get to see everybody as soon as they get on campus. And so, with guys who are returning to the program, it's like catching up with them if they weren't here over the summer. But then kind of getting a chance to introduce yourself to some of the new guys that you may not know as well. So that's always the fun part. But it's also like incredibly stressful, making sure that all the equipment's out that we need. And the line is moving, as it should. But the best part is just kind of getting to know the guys through just like, all right, you got all your equipment? All right, great. What's your name again?
Yeah, it's one of those things. You really work twice a year, right?
4 times.
4 times with spring, right?
Right. After that, I don't do anything.
Right, because you're always, hey, go ask whoever. You've had great we've had
Simpson, phenomenal managers.
Had really good managers.
Absolutely.
Like Austin and gosh, it's been so long.
Maddie,
you're right. Maddie, Neil, of course.
Frank has helped a little bit.
Frank, like they have done a great job, right, to do all that.
I mean, in all honesty, like that, they're the unsung heroes of that whole operation. I mean, and to be honest with you, that was probably one of my favorite parts. Is just kind of getting a chance to interact with them on a daily basis, and if there's any kind of problems that would arise throughout a given day, kind of helping them through that too.
One thing you've said before is once a GA, always a GA. What do you mean by that? And how's your experience as a GA at Wayne kind of shaped kind of who you are now?
Yeah. I mean, that's not like a saying that I would believe is exclusive to me. I've heard Robbie say it before. Guys that I GA'd with have said it. But just because you've acquired a new title, as a full-time coach, as an offensive line coach, whatever, that doesn't mean that you don't need to, like, you're automatically immune from all that, like, nitty-gritty work that nobody else sees. Like, the mentality is, like, you're going to do what's best for the program, and whatever that takes, like, just go and do it. So if it's, printing off stuff, whether it's printing practice scripts, wristbands, name badges for visits, like, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to have a problem with it. Like, if I have help, I'll use the help, right? But if that means it's just me doing it, like, that's just the, like, once a GA, always a GA kind of thing. I put on my little GA hat and do all the little nitty gritty work, right? But my experience at Wayne, I thought was pretty interesting. I joined the staff under Dan McLaughlin, who was a longtime coach there. And after my first season there, he ended up retiring. So during that I got to see a coaching change from the coaching perspective when they brought in John McMenamin. But I learned a lot from, the guys that I GA'd with, especially my guy Dre. Like, I mean, that guy, if anybody's listening who knows Andre McCall, like, they're gonna start laughing. I mean, that dude, like, doesn't know how not to work. Like, just kind of seeing how he does things kind of taught me a lot. And it wasn't necessarily like, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. It was just kind of like being his shadow for a little bit and then understanding, like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Because as a graduate assistant, depending on what level you're at, there's going to be a lot more that goes into your job description than, coaching your position and recruiting. Like, all other duties as assigned is the biggest sentence that nobody looks at.
Right.
So you just got to be prepared for whatever else they tell you to do. You're going to have to do it.
Yeah. I remember when I first got the job here, like, I was a stupid dude, like, child that had no idea what coaching was or what it looked like. And that's of course in the title and whatnot. And like, Coach Hoskins like, you ever done film before? I was like, oh, I mean, I've tagged film, sure. And then he's like, yeah, so you're going to be the film coordinator now. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I did not clearly ask enough questions, but yeah, that's one of the things. It's just like, all right, put the, film guy hat on, put the receivers coach hat on. You just got to go do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that sticks out to you while you're GA, or even maybe like the rest of your coaching experience where like some just wild or just like meaningless tasks that you did that you're like the outside world would be like, why would you ever do that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would describe it as meaningless. It was for the football program. You know what I mean?
Maybe not necessarily meaningless, but just like, I don't understand why we're doing this. I'm going to do it because it's what I'm told to do.
Right.
But one of those things where like, I don't see the vision here, but we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. So, and this was new to me. I don't know if it had been done before, but at Wayne State, if you've ever been to their football stadium, they've got their big WSC paw, right in the middle of the football field. In northeast Nebraska, it snows a lot more than it does in Texas. And one thing that was brought up when John came in is like, hey, when it snows, like I don't want to ever see the paw be covered. And I was like, does that mean we're gonna like go clear the field? Like, are we gonna clear the paw? He's like, yeah, we're gonna go clear the paw. And so the first time, like the whole staff went out and did it together. And I was kind of thinking like, oh, this is gonna be like a whole staff thing. Like, we're gonna take some time. We're gonna take some time out of our day to go do this together. And it quickly became like after the first time, it was like, all right, like GAs, just make sure this gets taken care of before this time. So
was there ever a time it didn't get done?
Not that I can remember.
Okay.
I think that the little coalition of GAs that we had, we were pretty on top of that. But there's one time specifically that was just, I have a video of it on my phone. It's kind of a sad scene. So, like we're out there, the wind's blowing everything around. But I stopped to just take a video and stop and smell the roses and enjoy just being freezing cold for, an hour or so. But I cut the video to Dre, and he's got like a half broken trash can, and he's just like picking snow up and like throwing it over his shoulder. And then I cut it to Tanner, and Tanner has a shovel that was broken in half. So the shovel's probably about this long, and he's over there just like trying to scrape up as much snow as possible. But shoveling the paw was something that, I don't know, it was kind of weird. I started taking a lot of pride in it. Like I wanted to know exactly how we could leave the least amount of footprints in the snow on the field. So like I would walk on the track to the middle of the press box. And once I got in line there, I would walk through the field to the middle where I was like in line with both goalposts. And then I would strike the shovel down and scoop and make sure the paw was there.
Oh my
and then we'd work inside out.
Goodness sakes, dude.
No, it was like during the time, like when I was doing it, I was like, why am I doing this? It is really cold outside and my hands hurt. But then like you get to go up into the press box and look down. It's like, this is pretty sweet. So, and
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say like, that's something that guys that I GA'd with, like we still talk about. So like John is at Northwest Missouri State. So they started doing it.
Oh, nice.
But we don't think that they do.
I wonder if Tanner's doing it over with Kinnick.
What? Do they have anything in the middle of their field?
Oh, yeah. They put the Tiger Hawk in the middle of the field.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think Nebraska did it once. I remember seeing Nebraska do it. But
Coach Rule's got it.
But the thing that I like, my one critique there is that they just like walked like diagonally across the field. I mean, that was the biggest, I guess, struggle that we had, with shoveling the paw.
Let's get into talking a little ball here. When you're building a run game each week, right? What are some of the biggest things that you are looking for when trying to build a run game?
Yeah. And again, this is all credit to, some of the stuff that Coach A has taught me, and not necessarily by like teaching me what this means, but like kind of talking about it and like being about it, is the players, formations, plays. Mm-hmm. So really getting a chance, early on to figure out what our guys are good at, especially in the run game. Like, what do we just understand really well? What do we block really well? And kind of having that in the back of my head as we begin to address our opponent. And then after that, it's really looking formationally, how teams align, their defensive box to, any of our name a formation set. Like we get into a bunch of crazy formations. And then just trying to find like what are the most advantageous ways to run out of these formations by what they're giving to us. So a lot of it just is formationally and what we do really well. And after that, we try to dress it up a little bit with motions and stuff like that. But it's all derivative of like starting with our guys first and like understanding what they're capable of. And then finding as many different ways to run the ball, out of those schemes with different formations and different motions.
Well, you definitely see that, like primarily with last year, this guy's gone now, but like Joe Bream, for example, unbelievably athletic center, right?
Right.
So what do you do with him a lot, right? You're going to pull him a lot.
Right.
You're going to run a lot of pin pull, and you're going to get him, he was undersized but athletic at the same time. So him on like, Mike linebacker's perfect or
Right.
on a force player in the alley.
Right.
Perfect example of using, or using a player, to, execute that particular scheme versus, him, power, for example, and really having to, go one-on-one with a big dude in the middle, for example.
Right. It was pretty much finding, unique ways to turn him into a fullback after he snapped the ball.
Right.
And that was not that we were scheming around him by any means, but that was definitely in our heads is like, what opportunities are we going to get from the defense, formationally that's going to allow us to get him on the run rather than just try to body up, a 290-pound defensive tackle. So it was trying to find as many of those scenarios as possible. And again, there were there have been different checks built into our run scheme that if we didn't like the look where he would be pulling, we can check out of it and have somebody else pull or do whatever. But it was like trying to hypothesize like where we think those opportunities are going to be in a game. And if they don't give them to us, they don't give them to us. We have other ways to check out of it.
What kind of language do you use? Maybe not, specifically like checks or anything, but like what kind of language do you use within the O-line room to kind of keep things consistent across the scheme and the philosophy?
Yeah. So something that I started doing, and I didn't do a great job of it last season, but I really tried to own it this year, is like just a phrase about each concept, each pass protection that really just sums it up without having the guys look at film or any diagrams. So it's front side gap unless man, down gap backer, like just simple stuff that like I can continue to hammer home with them. Mm-hmm. And really trying to keep my coaching cues as like precise, specific, but as short as possible. Just because I'd love to sit here and give you an expose on, why you need to keep your pads lower, but just get your pads under his. Like that's all it needs to be.
Right.
And those guys, it helps make our meetings a little bit more efficient. And like the guys are able to think faster because, again, I'm just giving them quick coaching points. They're not thinking about an expose or a clinic that I gave on tight zone. When they're trying to block a 3-tech or whatever, they're just thinking like, all right, hands inside, pads under pads, all right, and accelerate through contact. Like try to keep it to 3 to 4 words as much as possible.
One thing about this league specifically is teams are pretty different across it's not really like, every team in the league is running this one defensive scheme. Like it does change a lot. How do you try to keep the rules, fairly similar? Like, hey, guys in my gap, down, or guys not in my gap, climb. Like, is there certain things that you do within that, or kind of how do you go about that?
Yeah. So when it comes to teaching, the scheme that we're not necessarily installing, but running on a weekly basis, a lot of it starts with just diagrams that I draw up. I mean, you'd come into the office and I'd be sitting there like stressing out about, name a play versus this front. So it starts there and providing those guys with that information, kind of scribbling out like quick rules, about each given front or whatever. But the next part, I think it really builds into just like showing them the tape. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, here's the formation. All right. Not that you guys need to know that, but this is what we're going to try to run, right? This is how they're going to try to play it, right? But this is what we see. This is what we're trying to get to. So teaching them more of the why when we get to that point in the season, right? When we're and giving our scouting report and everything, like kind of showing them the why is the point that I'm really trying to get to. And again, it just kind of goes back to what is the most basic rule of this concept or this pass protection. And if they give us something weird, which has happened in the past, like just go back to your rules.
How do you help your guys process second level movement post snap, especially against teams that try to wrong arm or spill everything?
Yeah. So with second level movement, my coaching point, and again, this is very early on, this is foundational stuff, is that the linebacker is going to determine the tempo of the combo. So long story short, if the backer's reading it, then we're going to continue to carry that defensive lineman up to him. If he triggers, I'm triggering. All right. If he's scraping, all right, I'm going to follow him. And if he scrapes me to where I got to pull off the combo, then I got to make sure that I'm ready to roll and see what else is coming towards me. And then if he rolls away from me, then I got to be able to push my guy off. So again, it's just having really good eye discipline and understand like how the backfield action is going to impact linebacker movement. So like, are we in a sidecar set, right? How is our running back steps going to manipulate the linebackers? Are we in pistol, right? Because if we're in a pistol set, we should anticipate those linebackers to be a lot more downhill. So it's just kind of understanding really the whole piece of the play. But again, it's just post-snap confirm everything. And remember that the linebackers determine the tempo of the combo. So we don't need to go out and chase ghosts. All right, let those guys come to us, or we're going to bring one of his buddies up to him. So,
you're a guy who, first of all, I love and respect, and you always feels like you bring the energy to the room, no matter if it's a staff meeting, no matter if it's out on the practice field, offensive line meeting, whatever the case is. What does it mean to you to make football fun?
So I can remember a conversation with another one of my buddies. He's like, man, you joke a lot. I was like, yeah, because what we do is hard. It's really like hard. Coaching football is hard. Like whether it's, college football, high school football, whatever it is, it's a difficult job. But what's going to make it harder is having a bad attitude about it. And I've always been kind of like a loosey-goosey kind of guy where I'm going to crack a bunch of jokes. And I don't know. I just feel like it helps me loosen up because I can get real uptight pretty quick. But I also think that, for the guys that need it, it helps them loosen up. Like the quarterbacks. And again, I do not belong in those meeting rooms at all. But like when they meet in our office with Robbie, and I'm kind of sitting there getting ready for my meeting, and those guys start to file in. I'm just like, all right, what's the most out of pocket thing I can say to these guys right now? And so like one guy, I told him I had like a sneeze counting app, just to get him to laugh. Like no other reason than to just loosen up. Like it's a tough job, whether you're coaching football, playing football, it's tough. So like, why not just make it you're going to make it harder by being super serious all the time. And it's funny because I was listening to, the Pivot, right, with Lane Kiffin, and he kind of just confirmed that belief for me. It's like, that guy's he's a successful power 4 head coach. He's like, dude, just make it fun. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not doing this the wrong way. Like, I want to have fun. I want the people around me to have fun. So it's, get the guys loose and get ready for, a good day of practice. It's really when we get into the thick of the season where, we're in week 4, 5, or 6, and it's just kind of been the same grind. And, there's moments where it's like, all right, I need to take a step back and just kind of reevaluate where everything's at. You can kind of get lost in all the work that you're doing and all the preparation that you're needing to take. And, and it might be a 30-minute just like sit there and think kind of thing, but it kind of helps you get back to ground level on a more macro level there. On a much smaller level that happens a little bit more often. For me, like especially this last season with as difficult as it was with, things going on in my personal life, the national anthem was my moment to just like really settle into the game and just kind of like listen to the national anthem and just kind of like zone out in a weird way. Mm-hmm. And then once that was over, go grab, a splash of water, dap up the guys I need to dap up, and then kind of get ready for the game to kick off.
Yeah. One thing people overlook a lot of times is either calling JV play, like calling a JV offense or calling a freshman offense or calling whatever the case, like a lower, something other than like the varsity or like the main, the main thing, whatever. A lot of people overlook it, but I think you're one person that really takes pride in it and has a lot of joy in it. What is something like calling, JV offense or something like that, mean to you, and what kind of pride do you take when doing something like that?
Yeah. I mean, for those guys, it's a college football game.
Right.
Like they're not looking at it as, oh, this is just a JV football game. Like whatever. Like this is a football game. Like we're going to go out there and try to win. So thinking about the guys, like if I were to go out there and be like, whatever, it's a JV game. Like I got another game to break down, after this,
Right.
that would be the worst possible way to go about it. But it's like, man, I really get a shot to help these guys develop, and run our scheme against somebody else other than themselves. And it also gives me a chance to develop because before coming here, I had never called plays before. So it's like, all right, now I get a chance to, see what it feels like to call plays, for 4 full quarters where it's not a controlled environment or anything like that. So I really wanted to own it, and try to do the best job that I could for the guys, to help them get the development that they need, to continue to progress through our football program. And I know that if they end up listening to this, they're going to be thinking, Coach, you called like 4 total plays. You called 4 total plays over 4 games, and it's like they worked. Like why break, or if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. If did we share film with the other team? We shared the film with the other teams, right?
Yeah, we had.
You're an easy breakdown at times.
Well,
probably,
no,
right?
we didn't share it prior to the game. Like if we were
weren't doing film exchange of the other team, right?
No.
That's kind of the best part about JV sometimes, though. Is like that. It's like, let's run our base stuff and let's see what happens, right?
Well, then it becomes like a feel thing. Like once you
Right.
get into the second quarter, you're like, all right, these are these are the hits. Like these are things that I need to come back to. If we need 7 yards, 3 yards, whatever it is. And it's always one of those things where like, I don't know, I think the first JV game I was super rusty on like the flow of everything, but by the end I felt like I had a pretty good grip on it. So I'm excited for, our opportunities. I don't know how many we got. I know we got a couple more this year, but I'm looking forward to the opportunities to be able to do that again and continue to help this next, incoming class, develop, as football players, and then to continue to develop as a play caller too.
One of the last things here is segment. I have quick hits with Boyer. Okay, so feel free to expand on these as little or as much as you want to.
Yeah.
Okay. So as food guy, post-game meal go-to.
I know we talked about this before. Is it like my personal, like what would I eat after a game, or like
take it whatever you want in whatever direction?
Okay, I'll answer 2. So the personal one would be Caniac combo from Cane's.
Oh,
dude, I would destroy those in college. Like they did like we had a deal with Cane's when I was at college where like it was like some sort of Cane's challenge that it was like if the offense scored 14 points in the first half, like everybody gets a buy one get one free coupon to Cane's.
That's dangerous.
Well, then they would just leave. Like we would do it. Like I don't think there was a time that we missed on one, but they would leave the coupons. So my wife, being a great offensive line girlfriend at the time, would just grab the whole stack.
Oh my gosh!
Like, all right, I'm a king for a week. So, my go-to for post-game meal for a team, I'd have to go with Chick-fil-A. That was a good experience, and there's just something different about a Chick-fil-A sandwich after a football game.
I think that is the one you should probably rock with for a while. Favorite play call when you need 2 yards?
Get as many tight ends on the field, tight zone. As many tight ends as possible onto the field and just downhill run the ball.
How would you answer that question if it's 3rd and 2 on the goal line?
Get into our heavy package and give Joe Brim the football.
Okay. It's a good answer.
Were you trying to get to that answer?
No,
I feel like you're trying to guide
not
me towards that
necessarily. I
answer.
thought you were going to give me something different.
Okay.
I thought you were going to give me G lead, but
No, I need something downhill, quick hitting.
yeah, that's a good point.
Now,
I
guess with the context prior to the goal line, all right, where am I on the field 3rd and 2? Like, am I in 4 down territory? Because I might.
No, this was that situation. I wasn't going to say 4th and 2 because I feel like I wasn't going to say 4th and 2 on the goal line because then I feel like that's maybe a passing situation. So I was thinking more middle of the field was probably 4th and 2. Need to have it. Best football movie.
I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't watched a ton of football movies.
Really?
And I can see them like in my head. Remember the Titans.
Okay. Favorite restricted earnings receivers coach you've ever been around?
Will Carlock.
Okay. Football phrase that secretly drives you nuts.
It's a result-oriented business.
Okay. If your offensive line was a band, who would it be?
Dude, when you read me that question earlier, I was so excited, and I still haven't concocted the answer. So,
or maybe a genre. You can give me a genre.
Yeah,
of band.
I mean, that's so tricky, man, because the group that I have right now listens to such different music. And it's not like one guy listens to this, one guy listens to that. It's like all of them listen to like everything. But my answer there, let's see. I don't know. I would say Alice in Chains. I feel like we're an Alice in Chains team, like just in general.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
I have no idea who that is.
Really?
I'll listen to it after this.
You should. The Rooster. Start there.
Song that gets you in the zone.
There's so many of them.
I have one for you.
And again, I cycle through songs quite often. Here Comes the Hot Stepper.
Oh, well.
Dude, I heard that.
I don't even think I know what that song is.
Na, 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 na,
Oh,
na,
yeah.
na,
I thought you were going to say
na, na,
Higher
na.
by Creed.
No, that's a different zone. That's
That's like
I'm just like, I don't know.
You're in the car, like that sort of thing.
Windows are down.
Windows are down.
For whatever reason, I have long hair.
Yeah. Last question before we get you out of here. What's one piece of advice that you would give a coach that is just starting out?
Yeah. Don't be so enamored with the Roman numerals or the level that you're going to coach at. Really think about what's important to you, and have the mentality that you're going in and what you're going to do, not only as your first job, because it's probably going to be a GA spot, but really for the rest of your career, for as long as you're going to be in it, like understand that it's going to be difficult and there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, but you got to be the same person no matter what. And like I said, with don't go chasing those Roman numerals, I'd highly encourage those who are getting into the business now to chase impact. Where can you have the most amount of impact on the people around you? Whether it's, impacting the team on, food, right? Ordering food, like be the best possible, food guy out there. Like do whatever it takes to have the most amount of positive impact, on the staff you're with the players that you coach, anybody in your environment. Just chase the impact that you can have, and focus on that. Everything else will take care of itself if you are more focused on having a positive impact, on the people around you.
Thank you for listening to the Left Hash Call. For more episodes, you can go to Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, and even Facebook if you're into that. And I would really appreciate you subscribing, following, or just continue to listen. We'll see you next time. Peace.